Hi guys, welcome back to Balls Fan TV, and today we're back with another video doing the match reaction to last night's 1-0 defeat against Drogheda United at Dalymount Park. A very frustrating night. We've been saying that game 3 times this season against Drogheda, you know, where we have all the ball but couldn't find that killer pass, that move that got us in a position where we could, you know, get a shot off or get a goal. But yeah, it was a very annoying 90 minutes. You know, we were kind of worried that maybe this would happen. You know, we know that there was a chance that we were going to be left frustrated with the way that they set up, the way that they, you know, like to put all 11 men behind the ball and make it very tough for you. But you know, we were sort of hoping that we just have that bit more about us to break them down, but unfortunately we didn't. You know, it was a very you know, off night for us, I felt. You know, even in the final third, you know, we just couldn't get anything going. We didn't test Denison enough. You know, we didn't really have any clear-cut opportunities throughout the whole game. The only one I can really think of was Dawson's, you know, lovely ball into Rossi. He got a shot up, it was saved by Denison, and yeah, that was probably the only really clear-cut opportunity we had the whole game. Apart from that, it was just a lot of passing the ball about, looking for that killer pass, that killer opening to get a shot off, but it never came, unfortunately. And you know, as time went on, you just felt like something was going to fall for Drogheda, even though they weren't really doing anything in terms of, you know, creating chances. You know, they were being quite physical. You know, we expected that. You know, they have a lot of, you know, very physical players. Colin Whelan didn't get a sniff against Connor Keeley, and look, we kind of knew that would happen, you know, as soon as we saw the team and we saw that Douglas James Taylor wasn't in the squad again, and that was Colin Whelan up front. No, we knew that he was going to have a very tough night against that Drogheda defence, and that's exactly how it panned out. He didn't get a sniff all game. Connor Parsons, I thought, was pretty poor. You know, a couple of little moments where he was, you know, he linked up well with a few others, but you know, overall, I think he just slowed things down. Substitutions for me didn't really make much sense. Look, you know, it's probably one of the only times in the last few months that you can actually criticise Reynolds. I didn't think that subs were great. You know, bringing on Bucko when we were chasing a goal, you know, I think, you know, I didn't really agree with that substitution. I think, you know, Bucko, we know that you know, he has had a good impact off the bench in games this season, but you know, I think he's the kind of player that you bring on when you're, you know, looking to see a lead out, maybe, you know, when you're 2 or 3-0 up, you know, you can bring him on and he can calm things down, and just a steady head in that midfield. But look, you know, I didn't really agree with that substitution. You know, he brings on Reece Brennan then, and you know, it's probably too late by then, to be honest. You know, you could see that we weren't going to be able to break them down. You know, it was just going to be one of those nights, and you were just hoping that Drogheda wouldn't get anything on the counter, and look, it happened, obviously. You know, Connor Keeley plays Josh Thomas in. Look, I know there's a lot of debate going on. Why doesn't Moran or Cornwall just take him out and, you know, take the red card, take one for the team, and you know, just to avoid that from happening. But look, you know, he gets played in, he runs in on goal, puts it past Casper, and it's 1-0, and yeah, it just becomes even more frustrating then. And yeah, look, we came away with nothing in the end, and look, it's unfortunate. It was a really big game, one that we had to take something from at least. You know, as the game kind of went on, you probably would have thought, right, if we could have got a draw, it wouldn't have been the worst thing in the world. But coming away with a loss, it's really disappointing. But look, we've only really got ourselves to blame. We just didn't do enough going forward. We didn't test Denison enough, and yeah, ultimately, if you don't take enough risks going forward, if you don't, you know, instead of passing, maybe just try a shot, try something. Ultimately, you're not going to score, and look, that's been the story of our season at times, just overdoing things maybe in the final third. Look, I know it was very hard for us to, you know, get balls into the box when, you know, they have such a strong, physical, tall team, and you know, most of the time they had about 6 or 7 players in the box. But look, you know, you still hope with the quality that we have out there that we would have been able to carve out something, but unfortunately we couldn't. And look, it ended in a 1-0 defeat, and yeah, look, it's annoying, it's frustrating, you know, because especially when we've been there before this season, when we've been in control of games, we haven't been able to make it count. But it's not the end of the world. We're still second in the league. We're still in a solid position. We're still in a good place to hopefully maintain our position in the top three. But look, we can't let this be the start of a a bad run. We've got to respond now next week with 3 points in Talca Park. It's a good opportunity for us to do that as well, with Shells being in Europe in the week leading up to it, and hopefully we'll catch them tired, and we'll respond with 3 points. We'll have Douglas James Taylor back fit as well. So yeah, I think, speaking of him anyway, I think it would have been a completely different game if he was on the pitch. I think he would have been able to give it to Conor Keeley and the rest of that defence. For Drogheda, it's unfair for Whelan, really. He was never going to have a great game up against Conor Keeley, and yeah, he was just frozen out of the game completely. Yeah, look, I think having Douglas James Taylor back up front next week will be a big boost for us. So yeah, let's just hope that we can respond with 3 points next week, and we can put this behind us, and just see it as a bump in the road. And we'll be back on course then, next week in Talca Park. So yeah, that's where I'll end it. Make sure to like, subscribe, share, comment down below what you thought about the game, and I'll see you for the preview for the Shells game during the week. Bye bye.